Знімати будеш? Знімати? Добрий день всім, друзі. Медіа-центр.
Good afternoon, everybody. Ukraine Media Center in Ukraine Forum continues its work, and now in our studio we have with us Deputy Head of Police of Kyiv Oblast, Maksym Ocheretianyi. Mr. Ocheretianyi, you're welcome, and we'll discuss with him police operations, policing in the liberated territories of Kyiv Oblast. You're welcome. Good afternoon. I'm glad to see all of you here. You're all welcome. I'd like to inform the public about the Kyiv Oblast police operations. Those operations don't stop. And I'd like to start with information which our people are most interested in, and it's a major concern not only for broad public but also for police officers, because there are those crimes that we see every day and we continue to identify those, and they terrify us. And just for your information, for your understanding, by now in the territory of Kyiv Oblast, especially in the occupied liberated territories, we have already documented 1,202 dead bodies. Those are innocent civilians killed by Russian troops. I will describe those graves we have found after we liberated those territories, and I will use an example of the last grave that we found, and where there has been investigation in place, and there are terrible actions committed by Russian troops against innocent civilians in Kyiv Oblast. So now, by now, we have found 8 graves. The total number is 148 bodies there, and most of them are in Bucha districts. I will cover in more detail the last one found by police officers during investigation. I'll tell you in more detail that it was found the place where Russian troops had their positions, and from those positions they were constantly shelling our towns and villages, our innocent civilians, and those dead bodies that we found at that place, they look terrible. These are local innocent civilians, our citizens, and those dead bodies have clear signs of torture. Not only have their hands been tied up, and they also have been shooted in their legs, and then they were shooted and killed by shooting in their head. That brutality, that cruelty terrifies police officers and the broad public. Of course, we cannot tolerate that, and currently we continue to study the territories, and this is the last day when we, jointly with police officers from other oblasts who joined us in these months, have completed those activities, and we have got information about graves where we will do investigation and take those bodies from her. So we see every day that cruelty, and unfortunately we see it. Maksym, could you please tell us now, currently, how many criminal cases have already been initiated? Do you have that information? Well, we have to understand that we are talking not only about atrocities, not only about murders, killing, but also there have been more than 3,000 criminal cases with war crimes that we have documented. And our investigators, jointly with other law enforcement agencies, continue investigating those criminal cases. Maxim, could you please tell us what are priorities for police operations, police activities in those towns and villages? What are you doing there? Could you please tell us? I'd like to emphasize that, as I already said, we have also had law enforcement officers from other oblasts from western Ukraine working with us. Our police family is a big family, and since the very first days of when those towns have been liberated, there have been more than 370 officers from other oblasts who joined us. And I have to say that by now, due to thorough work of all those police officers, we have visited almost 90,000 apartments and 90,000 homes. Every street, every home. There has been no one street, no one building not visited by police officers. We have checked almost 45,000 citizens who came to those territories and stayed there after occupation. There are certain results of that work, of those activities. Just for you to understand, by now we have already identified 114 citizens as informed that they are suspects of marauder activities. Unfortunately, we do have such facts, but you know, our responsibilities as law enforcement is to identify such people and bring them to liability, those people who have unfortunately used this war situation for those crimes. Also, by now, due to our activities, we have documented more than 40 facts where it may be that some citizens were involved in collaboration with the enemy, and some of them have been notified of suspicion. Also, we have been working every day to find weapons and explosives, and this work has been continuing every day, and in various apartments we have found explosives and ammunition, and due to our cooperation with the state emergency services, almost 3,000 explosive items and ammunition items have been found by our joint teams in those territories. Also, we have documented more than 30 facts where firearms have been illegally stored, 38 grenades, 10 pistols, more than 5,000 cartridges for various types of weapons. Those activities continue, and unfortunately we continue finding citizens. By now we have already found more than 200 citizens who take drugs and store drugs, and you know, those are drugs like cannabis. We have already taken more than 35 kilos of cannabis, so we have something to say. And most importantly, for our people, for our residents of Kyiv Oblast, by now we have almost restored pre-war mode of operation of all patrol police groups, all our police stations, and we have been carrying out all those police functions, police responsibilities that we have to implement. So we maintain security and safety for our citizens, for our people every day, so that they should not worry that somebody would come and commit some crime. And we respond within 15 minutes. All our police groups have been working. I would like to thank those officers who joined us, and people from the National Guard of Ukraine who also joined us in those deoccupied territories. They have performed 100%, and I'm sure that also in the future we'll make our Kyiv Oblast safe and secure. Mr. Ocheretianyi, can we now say that homes of our people have all been checked and there are no explosive items anymore, or still this is not the case? You know, this is a sensitive question. We cooperate and with the State Emergency Service. we cannot say that we have checked 100%, you're welcome to come and live and it's all safe. We cannot say it because, people come back, and we see over the last week a lot of people who evacuated, who left for other oblasts, come back, and still they find in their homes, especially in their private houses, they still find some ammunition. I'd like to use this opportunity to say, please don't decide on your own. Don't take those things in your hands. Unfortunately, almost every day we see cases in Kyiv Oblast where those mines explode which were installed on the roads. We do have such facts, and I'd like to remind you that this Sunday is the day when we commemorate our dead, and in some districts like Bucha, Brovary, Bila Tserkva, in some districts they decided that there is still mining and people should not come to cemeteries. So, again, don't decide on your own that you will demine something or touch those items. It's very dangerous. And to finish with this subject, Mr. Ocheretianyi, I know that over the last week, and in particular yesterday, there have been some explosions heard in Kyiv and Kyiv Oblast. Our understanding is that it's about demining those territories. So can we tell people that it's just about demining which continues? Residents of Kyiv Oblast can feel safe. These activities will continue. Unfortunately, there are some explosive items which cannot be demined. They should be blown on site. And all law enforcement agencies have been working to full extent. We do have notifications, reports, we respond to them. Thank you, dear colleagues. You're welcome to ask your questions. Please use the microphone and introduce yourself.
Richard Lloyd Parry of the Times newspaper of London. I have two questions. The first is, you talked about cases of drug crime and drugs that have been seized. Are these connected to the Russian occupation, or are they just, as it were, routine drug crimes that you've discovered? The second question is about the cases of collaborators. Can you tell us how many people have been charged with crimes of collaboration, and when are they expected to appear in court, and which court will that be?
Thank you for your questions. First, all those crimes about illegal storage of drugs, they have nothing to do with warfare. These are just our routine activities. I just mentioned though that police is continuing its usual operations and does it even better now, because we have got not only additional staff, but also, we have our checkpoints and everything. But it's not related to warfare. Second, about collaborations. 10 people have been notified as suspects, and about judging on the merits, it will be decided by the court of law where those criminal proceedings will be considered, will be heard. Thank you. Any more questions? I have a question about so-called mass graves. Those graves, how many of those graves has been found? And you mentioned 1,202 bodies found. How many of them is in those mass graves? And out of those 1,202 bodies, how many have been identified? Thank you for your question. For me, each and every grave, like for any and every of us, each and every grave is about some horror that those people had. Even when we find one body, it's terrible, but when there are 3 or more bodies, if we are talking about such graves, we have found 8 graves of that type. And in those 8 graves, we have found 148 bodies. So the total number has been 1,202, and we have not identified almost 280 people. We have been working every day and we get all the information, and you see most of them has been identified. So we have been working every day. Any more questions? Good afternoon. Currently, many... could you please repeat? No, most territories have been occupied, and the police officers working before that, who used to work under the Ministry of Internal Affairs, joined the ranks of so-called People's Republics. Do you have information about those police officers, and if and when those territories are deoccupied, what will happen to those police officers? Thank you. Thank you for your question. Maybe I'll correct a bit, because not most of the territories have been occupied. I can tell you that it's about how everybody treats his or her country, and the oath of allegiance, and your responsibilities. If the person has chosen this way, that person should be brought to the strictest criminal liability, like all other traitors of our country. And it's about the court and everything. You know, unfortunately, I cannot answer this question now. But, you know, in Kyiv Oblast we didn't have such cases, but about those territories which are areas of combat action now, I think that their departments will provide with more information. Thank you.
Hello, news organization T-Online. You were talking about torture too. And I was wondering how many of the 184 bodies that were found in mass graves showed signs of torture. So how big is that dimension of torture? And secondly, you were talking about collaboration. So as a quick follow-up question, those 10 people that have been notified by the police, what did they actually do? How did they collaborate? For example, the mayor of Bucha was mentioning a case of collaboration with the kill lists that the Russians apparently had, so that some local people of Bucha helped them write this kill list. Can you say something about that? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. About 148 bodies, you know, all of them have some bodily injuries, and for most of them there has been autopsy done and there is forensic examination being done, which will provide us with more specific information. So now how many of them have been tortured, I cannot say, because there are certain investigative activities in place now. Now about collaborations against, there is this confidentiality of investigation. I will not mention any names now. This information will be judged by the court, and when they're sentenced you'll get. But about the mayor of Bucha, we had a press briefing with the mayor of Bucha. You are welcome to watch it on our YouTube channel. And there the mayor of Bucha told his whole story, where he was hiding and all that. If there are any more questions, you're welcome.
Yeah, I have one question. Almost 1 month has passed since the end of the occupation in the Kyiv region. Do you have more details about crimes committed on women? And do you have more details about Russians responsible for these crimes or investigated for these crimes? As we know that maybe there is one group that move in another region at the moment fighting, so if you have any details about this.
Thank you for your question. I'm sure that, you know, basically there are more than 3,000 war crimes being investigated, and to tell you in more detail about the liability and whom we have notified out of those occupational forces, I'm sure that that there were already were or will be press briefings by other agencies, prosecutors' offices and so on. About women, yes, we receive such information and check it every day, and I will say that we have created an additional team which has a psychologist, and we check that information, we verified it, but this is a sensitive topic. I understand what you mean. We should talk a language of facts. This team has been working, and I'm sure that soon we'll be able to tell you in more detail when we document these crimes, because there is this information, but we should use a language of facts. Thank you. Any more questions?
Thank you. Christina Lamb from the Sunday Times of London. I wondered what kind of cooperation and help you're getting from other police forces from around the world, or if anybody is helping you.
Thank you for your question. We receive help from other countries of Europe, and believe me, this help is not just about physical presence, but this help includes bulletproof vests, personal protective gear, and other things. And also they help us with the experience of those agencies. They work with us investigators. For example, we have a team from France which helps us, and from other EU countries. So, you know, I cannot say who helps more, who helps less. Everybody's helping, and that's great. Thank you. Any more questions? No more questions. Thank you, Mr. Ocheretianyi. Thank you for finding time to join us. And I'd like to remind you, dear journalists, that you're welcome to monitor our announcements. Now we are developing our schedule for tomorrow, and we'll announce it on our Telegram channel, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you. Thank you.